because I know the truth. Ain't none of you put me on the set, and ain't none of you gonna kick me off the set.
Nipsey's death has always carried a storm of tension and mystery, but after years of silence, Snoop Dogg just shocked everyone by finally opening up in court. Word on the street is Snoop snitched on Big U and even dropped hints about his own part in Nipsey's case. But the craziest part, the reason he chose to speak now. Nobody saw this twist coming. When Snoop took the stand, the whole courtroom froze. People say it felt like the air got sucked out of the room when he started talking. What came next was wild. Snoop didn't just apologize for his old ties, he straight up pointed fingers at one of the most feared figures in LA street politics, Big U! Yeah, you heard that right. Snoop Dogg called him out in front of everyone. In a jaw-dropping twist, Snoop's own words connected Big U to long-whispered conspiracy theories about Nipsey Hussle's tragic murder. And now, behind closed doors, insiders are saying the one word nobody ever thought would be linked to Snoop: snitch. Let's take it back for a second. Nipsey Hussle wasn't just a rapper, he was Crenshaw's pride.
There was some sort of situation that happened, some sort of shootout with you, Nipsey, LAPD, something.
A man who lifted his neighborhood while staying true to the streets that built him. But when he was killed in March 2019, it didn't just break hearts, it lit a fire of rumors, blame, and dark conspiracies that still haven't cooled off. Some folks whispered it was all just a street beef gone wrong, while others believed there were powerful forces moving behind the scenes. And one name kept popping up again and again: Big U, Nipsey's former manager, a man whose name in Los Angeles carries both respect and fear. To really understand why Snoop Dogg's courtroom moment hit like a thunderclap, you've got to understand who Big U really is. Big U wasn't just some bystander or old mentor. He was deep in the mix of Nipsey's come-up and later, the cracks that came with fame, loyalty, and turf tension. His connection to Nipsey ran deep, and when things shifted, so did the energy around him.
No, that was what, 7 years ago? It wasn't no shooting. It wasn't no shooting. It was a family dispute. That's my little brother, you know what I'm saying? I love him to death.
Now fast forward to Snoop Dogg. For decades, Snoop's been more than just a rapper. He's a global icon, a businessman, a voice that defines generations. But don't get it twisted. His heart still beats for Long Beach, the Crip set, and the streets that shaped him. So when Snoop speaks on something this serious, the whole world leans in to listen. That's exactly what happened in court. Snoop took the stand, chose every word carefully, and the tension was electric. He owned up to his past mistakes and apologized. Not just to the court, but to Nipsey's family, the fans, and Nipsey's legacy itself. But then came the moment that froze everyone in their seats. According to multiple reports, Snoop pointed straight at Big U, saying his influence may have played a role in the chaos that surrounded Nipsey's tragic end. For many watching, that didn't sound like a simple apology, it sounded like cooperation. And in street culture, that word comes with only one label: snitching.
Were you there that day?
Yes, I was. Guy rolled up, Nipsey's out hanging, signing autographs or whatever. Guy rolled up. I don't know what his intention was. As I replay it, I just replay it over and over. And I wish I could have done something differently. I wish I'd have never left his side.
But here's where things start to spin out even crazier. Snoop's courtroom words didn't just come out of nowhere. They matched years of whispers that had already been floating through the streets. From Nipsey's closest homies to Big U's own past interviews, the pieces are starting to line up in a way that's hard to ignore. Just listen to this chilling clip from one of Nipsey's real friends who was right there the day everything went down. It's raw, emotional, and full of pain. That kind of heartbreak hits deep. Hearing it straight from someone who lived through it makes you understand why Snoop's testimony hits so hard. Because while Nipsey's friend keeps replaying those awful moments in his mind, Snoop just made the whole world stop and ask one question: was Big U really tied to the events that ended Nipsey's life?
Conspiracy that Big U had that something to do with it, right? But let me get to a little deeper question. The rumor has it is that Nip came up to this guy and said, "I can't hang with you, or we can't be around because he was around."
Now, Big U hasn't been hiding from the rumors either. In fact, he's faced them head-on in interviews, standing firm and saying people have been twisting his story for years. There's even a clip where Big U himself tries to clear the air about all the wild talk and conspiracies that keep circling his name. But if you watch closely, his tone says a lot. He sounds tense, almost like he's tired of being accused. Still, the streets never forget, and when Snoop's courtroom words echoed the same suspicions people had been whispering for years, it felt like he threw gasoline on a fire that was already burning hot. Think about it. Snoop has always walked a fine line. He's preached peace and claimed to be the king of Long Beach, yet he's also never been afraid to throw sharp words at rivals. And now, with his latest testimony, that line between loyalty and betrayal just got way blurrier. People have been questioning Snoop's credibility, saying he couldn't even show his face in his own hood anymore. But just listen to how he clapped back.
Asking.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, you gotta understand it was two things. Well, let me ask you this, because
Okay.
what bothers me the most is when people say he got killed by one of his own homeboys.
That didn't sound like someone scared or unsure of himself. That was the voice of a man who knows his power, who's used to commanding respect and making his presence felt wherever he goes. But in that courtroom, everything changed. With the world watching and the stakes sky high, Snoop flipped the whole script. He laid out details that law enforcement had been chasing for years. Names, connections, and context. No filters, no holding back. And let's be real, this move came with serious consequences. Because in the eyes of many, Snoop just crossed a line you can't ever walk back from. Still, before we dive into all that fallout, it's important to stop and see the heart of this whole situation. Nipsey Hussle himself. Nipsey wasn't just another artist or a street icon.
Let me ask you a question. It's kind of harsh. Was Nipsey supposed to say that? If you're not in the streets no more, is your opinion on the streets that valid?
He was a father, a son, and a visionary trying to build real wealth and opportunity for his people. His friend once said Nipsey never left his block, never turned his back on the place that raised him, even though danger was always lurking just around the corner. And that's what makes this story cut so deep. This isn't just courtroom drama. It's old pain being ripped open all over again. Because if Snoop's testimony is true, then Big U's role in all this might be way darker than anyone ever wanted to admit. But if Snoop went too far, or even twisted facts just to save himself, then he didn't just stir the pot, he might have set fire to his own legacy. Either way, the backlash is massive, and the streets are watching every move, and just when it seemed like the drama couldn't possibly get any wilder, another shocking twist hit the courtroom and left everyone speechless. Everyone was stunned. No one saw this coming. When Snoop pointed that finger at Big U, the entire courtroom froze. When Snoop Dogg first walked in, most people expected a show.
All you talking that about, Snoop can't come to the hood. He can do whatever I like when I like. Second of all, you 50 years old. You can't get a job, cuz? You mad at me, cuz? Cause I won't help you no more?
They thought he'd flash that same smooth charm he's had for over 30 years, maybe crack a few lines, win the crowd, and walk out untouched. To them, it looked like just another celebrity courtroom moment, another day for Snoop to remind the world he had nothing to hide. And at first, that's exactly how it looked. His voice softened, his body language calm, and then he dropped something no one had heard from him in decades, an apology. He opened up about his past, about the ripple effect of his music and his image. He admitted that glorifying gang life had helped feed a culture of violence that's left deep scars across Los Angeles. It was emotional, raw, and almost sounded like closure, like Snoop was ready to bury the gangsta image once and for all and step into a new chapter as Snoop Dogg, the wise OG. But then, just when everyone thought it was over, he flipped the script completely. What came next wasn't closure, it was an explosion, because after that heartfelt apology came the part that made jaws drop, the accusations, and the name that fell from his mouth hit like a grenade, Big U. The silence that followed was heavy, like the air itself froze. Nobody could believe what they'd just heard. It wasn't just that Snoop had apologized, it was who he blamed. He didn't point the finger at a stranger or some unknown figure.
I'm gonna miss him. The world misses him. It's great what he's done for the world. You know, I'm gonna miss his smile. I'm gonna miss him just rolling up on me. I'm gonna miss his advice. You know, he give me books to read. It's just so many things I'm gonna miss about him.
He called out someone from his own world, from within the same streets that raised him. In that moment, everyone who understood street life knew exactly what had just gone down. Snoop had just done something that could change everything, both for himself and for the people tied to that name. To outsiders, it might have sounded like Snoop was just speaking his truth, clearing his conscience in front of the world. But for people who really know the code, the ones who understand how the streets work, what Snoop did was way more dangerous. He stepped straight into the zone of testimony, breaking one of the oldest, most sacred rules out there. No names, no cooperation, no betrayal of the brotherhood. Even when the brothers mess up, you don't hand them over. And that's why this moment hit so hard. In Los Angeles, especially in the neighborhoods that raised both Nipsey Hussle and Snoop Dogg, credibility isn't just something you earn, it's your entire identity. You can stack cash, chase fame, and build empires, but if your credibility slips, you're done. Out there, respect is everything, and one thing respect can't stand next to is snitching. That's why Snoop's words didn't land like some casual apology. They hit like a nuclear blast. Suddenly, what looked like a moment of healing turned into a shockwave that divided the community. And it all comes back to Big U's name and what it means in the story of Nipsey Hussle. See, back in the day, Big U wasn't just a manager. He was the bridge between the streets and the industry. He gave Nipsey protection, direction, and street-level credibility when Nipsey was still building his name. But relationships built in that world, they're never simple. They're tied up with loyalty, control, love, and fear all at once. So when Nipsey started leveling up, becoming a businessman, investor, and community leader, that shift naturally brought tension. He didn't need a street guardian the same way anymore. That new independence became both his biggest strength and his biggest risk. And the space that opened between him and Big U, that's where the rumors started breeding, turning quiet whispers into a storm that still hasn't died down. When Nipsey was murdered, the streets lit up with rumors that spread like wildfire. Some said it was just the tragic act of a jealous man, but others swore there were deeper betrayals, power plays, and politics bubbling under the surface that led to his death. And soon enough, one name started echoing through every corner of LA, Big U, not because anyone had proof, but because in the streets, people believe one cold truth. The knife usually comes from the hand you once trusted. Big U didn't stay silent though. He's faced those whispers head on, and his words show how much the weight of those accusations really hits him. He's pushed back hard, flipping the whole idea and saying the man who pulled the trigger wasn't truly family, wasn't really one of them. It's his way of saying, don't pin this on me, don't blame us. But even with those denials, the rumors still stick, because once the streets attach your name to something like that, it's almost impossible to shake it off. And when Snoop Dogg, of all people, brought that same suspicion back to life in a courtroom, it didn't just stick this time, it solidified. His words gave those old whispers new energy, and suddenly everyone was talking again. The power behind Snoop's accusation hits even harder because of the complex bond between Big U and Nipsey. Their relationship wasn't simple. It had love, loyalty, and tension all mixed together. Even Big U has admitted that things weren't always peaceful between them. When asked about those past conflicts, Big U played it down, calling them nothing more than family matters. But the streets don't see it that way. To them, even a small crack between brothers can grow into something much bigger. And now, with Snoop's words out in the open, that old tension has exploded right back into the spotlight. Those words might have sounded protective, but they expose just how tense and dangerous things really get in the street world. Family disputes out there aren't like simple dinner table arguments. They're volatile, emotional, and sometimes deadly. It's a messy mix of loyalty and rivalry, where someone you call brother today could be seen as a threat tomorrow. That's the reality that makes this story so complicated. Even though Big U keeps insisting he had nothing to do with Nipsey's death, people still can't help but wonder if there's more to the story than what meets the eye. And Snoop's decision to speak out in court, it reignited every single one of those doubts louder than ever. For years, Snoop has walked a fine line, the ultimate balancing act. One minute he's joking with Martha Stewart on national TV, and the next, he's reminding Long Beach that he's still connected to his roots. That ability to float between both worlds, the corporate stage and the Crip set, is exactly what made him so powerful. But the moment he stepped into that courtroom and said Big U's name out loud, that illusion shattered completely. To some people, what Snoop did looked like bravery, a man standing on truth no matter the cost. But to others, it felt like betrayal. And in Los Angeles, betrayal never fades. Once it's done, it sticks forever. Because in that world, the word snitch isn't just a random insult, it's a permanent mark, a scarlet label that doesn't fade with time or get washed away by fame. In the neighborhoods where Snoop and Nipsey came from, your credibility is your lifeline, and once it's gone, your voice means nothing. And that's the storm Snoop now finds himself caught right in the middle of. In the streets, once that label hits you, your history gets rewritten and everything you built starts to crumble. The rules are harsh, no doubt, but they've survived for generations because people enforce them with unshakable loyalty and fear, and that's what makes Snoop's courtroom words so devastating. It doesn't even matter whether what he said about Big U was true or not. It doesn't matter if he was trying to honor Nipsey's memory or just protect himself from the pressure closing in. What matters is how the community heard it, and they heard it as testimony. And in that world, testimony means snitching. Now the fallout is unavoidable. Big U is once again standing in the hot seat, fighting to defend his name. He keeps reminding everyone that there's no paperwork, no proof, no solid evidence connecting him to Nipsey's death. When you listen to him talk, you can hear both exhaustion and defiance in his voice, like a man who's had to say the same thing over and over, but knows he can't stop saying it. For Nipsey's fans, this moment has ripped the pain right back open. The wound that never really healed is now bleeding again because of Snoop's words. And for Snoop himself, the reputation he spent decades crafting as the wise OG, the peacemaker, the icon, might now be rewritten under one brutal label: snitch. That's the real tragedy of that courtroom moment. What could have been remembered as a powerful act of humility, a man owning up to his past and trying to rise above it, will instead go down as the day Snoop Dogg crossed the line. It'll be remembered as the moment Snoop Dogg pointed straight at Big U, turning whispers into headlines and giving the streets something they'll never forget. That single moment didn't just shake the courtroom, it reignited every old wound that people thought had finally started to fade. The ghost of Nipsey Hussle still walks through Los Angeles. His name alone can silence a crowd. Even years after his death, his energy still feels alive, echoing through Crenshaw every time one of his songs shakes the block. Nipsey wasn't just another rapper lost to street violence, he was a symbol of hope, proof of what could happen when someone from the neighborhood didn't just make it out, but came back to build something real. That's why Snoop Dogg's courtroom confession hit people so deep. It didn't just put Big U's name back in the mix, it dragged Nipsey's memory right back into a storm of betrayal, conspiracy, and heartbreak that never truly healed. It forced everyone to relive the pain that still lingers in the city he called home. Nipsey's final day has been told and retold by those who loved him most, and every retelling feels like ripping open a wound that refuses to close. But to really understand why this all cuts so deep, you've got to understand what Nipsey stood for. He wasn't just about music or fame, he was about loyalty, growth, and ownership. He refused to abandon his roots even when success could have taken him far away. He bought property right there in Crenshaw, started businesses, and hired people from his own block. To his fans, that made him a hero, living proof that you could rise up without ever selling out. But for those who know how the streets work, they understood the risk behind that loyalty, because in that world, staying means exposure. The same love you show your block can turn into jealousy, resentment, or danger overnight. Nipsey's strength, his refusal to leave, was also what made him vulnerable. And now, with Snoop's testimony reigniting all those old suspicions, it feels like Nipsey's story is being pulled back into the same storm of pain and betrayal he spent his life trying to rise above. Nipsey knew the danger, and still, he stayed. That choice alone feels haunting now. He believed it was his duty to remain in his neighborhood, even when he knew that violence followed him everywhere he went. And that's the heartbreaking part. The same loyalty that made Nipsey so loved by his people also made him vulnerable. So when Snoop pointed his finger at Big U, it didn't just sound like an accusation against one man, it carried a heavier message. It hinted that the loyalty Nipsey showed to his circle might have been the very thing that cost him his life. When Nipsey Hussle was shot in front of his Marathon clothing store in March 2019, Los Angeles didn't just lose a rapper, it lost a leader. The entire city fell silent in mourning. But what came next in the days and weeks that followed proved that Nipsey's impact stretched far beyond Crenshaw and Slauson. His influence was global. Tributes poured in from neighbors, from fans across the world, and even from the highest levels of politics and entertainment. People didn't just remember him for his music, they remembered him as a visionary, a builder, and a man with purpose. Nipsey wasn't chasing fame, he was chasing legacy. One of the most powerful tributes came at his memorial service held at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, a place usually filled with championship parades and sold-out concerts. But that day, it was transformed into a cathedral of grief and love. Over 20,000 people filled the arena to celebrate his life, while millions more watched from home, tears in their eyes, hearts heavy with respect. Even former President Barack Obama sent a personal letter that was read aloud to the crowd, describing how Nipsey's story, his mission to uplift his people, invest in his block, and build generational wealth was an inspiration not just to Los Angeles, but to the entire nation. That's the kind of man Nipsey was. His energy could unite the streets and the world. And now, Snoop's courtroom moment has reopened all those memories, forcing everyone to feel that loss all over again. Across America, Nipsey's name carried a weight that couldn't be ignored. Every tribute, every post, every mural, all of it reflected exactly how fans saw him, a man who stayed loyal to his roots when he could have easily walked away. At his memorial service, that loyalty and love were on full display, filling the Staples Center with an energy that felt both heartbreaking and powerful. Nipsey's partner, Lauren London, gave a speech that left the entire crowd in tears. Her words were filled with love, pain, and pride for the legacy Nipsey left behind for their children. His mother also spoke with strength and calm, urging everyone to see past the violence and remember her son as a man of light, purpose, and peace. Friends and collaborators like Snoop Dogg and YG took the stage too, sharing personal stories that reminded everyone Nipsey wasn't just a superstar. He was a brother, a friend, a fighter. The room swung from silence to applause, from tears to smiles, as people mourned what was lost but celebrated everything he built. Outside the arena, thousands more filled the streets. Blocks were covered in murals, candles, and flowers. Car caravans rolled through South LA, blasting Nipsey's music from their windows, painted with the words, "The marathon continues." Local artists worked day and night, painting massive portraits of Nipsey on walls and storefronts, transforming him into a permanent symbol of strength and pride across the city. These weren't just murals, they were messages of immortality, proof that Nipsey's presence would never fade. His influence spread far beyond LA, even reaching the world of sports and entertainment. At NBA games, players wore jerseys with his name and number. At concerts and award shows, musicians honored him with emotional performances. Social media exploded with tributes too. Fans from around the globe shared personal stories about meeting Nipsey, small moments of kindness, generosity, and motivation that never made the headlines but showed the kind of man he truly was. Every post, every song, every candle burning in his name screamed one message loud and clear: Nipsey Hussle's legacy is forever. People didn't just talk about Nipsey's music, they talked about how he poured his success back into his community. He opened businesses, created jobs, and gave others the same chances he once fought for. He became a blueprint for real change, and that's why when Snoop Dogg's courtroom words dropped, the community's reaction was explosive. Everyone instantly knew the kind of line he had just crossed. In Los Angeles, the street code isn't written down, but everyone knows it by heart. The rule is simple. You don't cooperate, you don't name names, and you never point fingers in public, especially not in front of the system. Breaking that rule gets you branded with one word that never fades: snitch. And in that world, it's the most poisonous word you can be hit with. It doesn't just ruin relationships, it erases your credibility. And for men like Snoop, credibility is everything. It's currency. It's what keeps your name respected, your word trusted, your legacy alive. That's why his courtroom testimony sent shockwaves far beyond the walls of that building, and fans flooded social media with a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. Some defended Snoop, saying he finally had the courage to speak the truth, that too many powerful men stay silent while the streets keep bleeding. But others came for him hard, saying he had destroyed his own image, calling him a hypocrite for preaching about loyalty while breaking the very code that defines it. And right in the middle of all this noise sat Nipsey's family, living through a pain no trending topic could ever capture. For them, this wasn't about hashtags or headlines, it was personal. They weren't debating loyalty or betrayal online, they were grieving the loss of a son, a brother, a father, and a partner. To the world, Nipsey had become a symbol, a name tied to deep conversations about loyalty, betrayal, and the street code itself. But to his family, he was still just Ermias, the man they loved and lost. And now his story was being pulled back into a storm that refuses to settle. To the world, he was Nipsey Hussle, the icon. But to his loved ones, he was simply Ermias, the boy they raised, the man they laughed with, the father whose empty seat at the dinner table will never be filled again. His family didn't just lose a public figure, they lost a piece of their hearts. What made it even harder was that his death never truly found peace. Every new accusation, every online rumor, every whispered conspiracy on street corners just ripped the wound open again. Instead of being allowed to grieve quietly, his family had to watch the world dissect his legacy like it was a mystery to solve. His name got tangled in stories and theories that had nothing to do with who he really was. Their private heartbreak turned into a public spectacle as strangers debated the life and death of someone they barely knew. For Lauren London, Nipsey's longtime partner, the loss wasn't just about losing the man she loved. It was about watching their shared dreams collapse in an instant. At Nipsey's memorial, her trembling words cut through the silence. She spoke about the pain of raising their son without his father, about one day having to explain why he was taken so soon. Her heartbreak became the city's heartbreak. For Nipsey's mother, Angelique Smith, the grief came with double the weight, mourning her child while trying to hold her family and community together. People looked to her for strength, and somehow she gave it, offering peace, love, and guidance to others even while carrying her own unbearable pain. And then there's his brother Samuel Black Sam Asghedom, who faced the impossible task of pushing through his own sorrow while keeping Nipsey's dream alive. He took on the responsibility of continuing the Marathon clothing store and expanding the businesses that Nipsey built with so much passion and vision. For Los Angeles itself, the loss of Nipsey Hussle wasn't just personal, it was spiritual. The city felt emptier, like a light had gone out. His family, his friends, and his fans were all left trying to carry that light forward, even as the noise of rumors, courtroom drama, and conspiracies refused to let his legacy rest in peace. The moment felt deeply symbolic. Nipsey Hussle had once stood as proof that the cycle could be broken, that a man could rise above the violence, stay true to his roots, and still inspire change from within his own block. But his tragic death showed that the streets don't let go that easily. And now Snoop Dogg's courtroom words prove something just as heavy, that even those who survive long enough to become legends can't escape the weight of the code. Because in that world, the streets don't forget, and they sure don't forgive. Once that word snitch gets whispered, it sticks like glue. Doesn't matter if you're a young hustler on the corner or a global superstar with platinum plaques, the rules stay the same. When that label lands, it doesn't just follow you, it can bury you. So now that one question hangs over the West Coast like a dark storm cloud. Did Snoop's words change the game forever? Did he finally make the culture face the uncomfortable truth about loyalty, betrayal, and what it really costs to tell your truth? Or did he just dig his own grave in the eyes of the streets, trading his credibility for one moment of honesty the culture might never forgive? And through it all, the ghost of Nipsey Hussle still lingers. His legacy lives on through his music, his businesses, and the murals that paint his face across Los Angeles. But his spirit also lives in the code, in the never-ending conversations about loyalty, trust, and the danger of speaking names out loud. Until that question is finally answered, Nipsey's ghost will keep haunting the city that raised him, the same city that made Snoop Dogg, Big U, and Nipsey Hussle who they are.
So what do you think? Did Snoop's courtroom apology finally bring out the truth? Or did it just reopen old wounds and add more pain to Nipsey's legacy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next.